dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 817 podcast. I am Jimmy here with my co-host EJ, where we talk everything about the city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and the greater DFW Metroplex, from news and politics to culture, business, trends. If it's happening here, we're talking about it. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling good, man. We had me and my wife, we went to that amphibian theater play, Spaceman. It was good. But then we tried to do a bunch of other things and everywhere was popping. And so we were like, we just going home. I mean, it was popping outside this weekend.
Yeah, we did a little staycation last night. We had a free night reward that we needed to use that was going to expire at the end of the month. So we stayed at the Kimpton Harper and we walked to all the places that you couldn't get into, but we're early birds, so we were able to find a spot. we were in and out before all the cool kids came out.
Yeah, well, with this pod, the cool kids had their cool kid shenanigans. We had Downtown Inc. had their breakfast luncheon awards talking about how great downtown is. And then Visit Fort Worth did their annual brunch where they talk about how great Fort Worth tourism is. And so really, I think this episode is all about, the balance between great, us saying, hey, Fort Worth is great. This is kind of the year. This is kind of the time of the year where they do this. And then it fits conveniently with the Fort Worth Report did a panel called the Fort Worth Way. Did you see that?
I did. And we're lucky enough, that's something that would have been perfect for us to recap. And we've had Dante on the show before. We've had Jennifer on the show before. But we got to sit down and talk to Alex Jimenez, who was the fourth person on the panel, including former Mayor Betsy Price. So that's our big story today, is talking with Alex about the Fort Worth Way, kind of breaking down what that panel looked like. So we'll do our normal 2 or 3 short stories, followed by our conversation with Alex Jimenez as the big story.
Cool. So the first story of the week, the first short story that really kind of came out was that the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce CEO steps down. Brandon Gingelbach is stepped down as Fort Worth Chamber. Mike Berry, who is on the board and pretty much honestly funding the Chamber of Commerce, he is now going to play interim CEO. To me, this is a exciting change. I think personally, I feel like chambers are out of date, the way they do them, the way they approach cities. If Mike Berry is going to be involved, if he can do something like he did in Alliance in the 820 loop, we're getting it directly from the expert and the powers at play who pulled it off in Alliance. He is now playing interim at the Chamber of Commerce in downtown Fort Worth. What was your take when you saw this story, and thoughts and concerns?
Yeah, this is a pretty big bomb that just kind of dropped out of nowhere. Nobody really knew that this was coming. He made the decision on his own and just said it's time to step back. So I don't have as big of an opinion on Chamber of Commerce's as you do, because I feel like I'm with the majority of people that look at them and go, what, do you guys do anything? What do you do? So I definitely think it's intriguing if Mike Berry does continue as the permanent person in this role, to see how the Alliance effect comes into the 820 loop. But yeah, more than anything, it was just a big surprise for everyone this week.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think the they're going to search for a nationwide search replace for Gingelbach, because obviously Mike Berry is the president of Hillwood, and has a lot to do. So, but I hope that it's someone who can help the 820 loop catch up with the Alliance. And I feel like they should be thoughtful on that. I felt like there was a quote in here. I'm trying to say who quoted it. They called him like a cheerleader. He did a great job as a tireless cheerleader and advocate for Fort Worth, said Charlie Campbell, Vice Chair of Chamber's Executive Board and Senior Vice President of Finance and Administration at Hillwood. That's the kicker. You don't really, I feel like, want a cheerleader at the Chamber of Commerce. You want a builder, someone who has the acumen and experience. And I think ultimately, the issue with this is just like our CEO president was a tall, white, handsome, likable young guy who can like make people feel welcome in Fort Worth, but strategically have the experience of running large businesses, strategically doing those kind of things. Unfortunately, our chamber is one of the things that I felt like little town Fort Worth. And so maybe this allows us to put some pressure on setting up we talk about the greater business Hispanic chamber when we talk to Alex Jimenez. Maybe there should be a Fort Worth Alliance Greater Fort Worth Chamber, and it comes one between Alliance and downtown, and like we create that bridge. And like maybe that's what the city needs, is a Greater Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce that brings more of the businesses together, rather than you have the downtown guys, you then have the Alliance guys. And you also have to know our economic development department with Robert Stearns and that team. They also are trying to be very more proactive and trying to get recruits with their campaign, right? So they will ideally probably want more of a Frisco model where they can have their own entity like Visit Fort Worth. So I don't know how that plays into it. Like all these players play into that, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Well, let's move on to talking more about downtown, and we'll start with talking about the new City Hall. So Fort Worth bought the Pier 1 building, and it is adding an addition for the new City Hall chambers. What was now supposed to cost $100 million is going to cost $150 million. Like, it just feels like the cost of this is kind of going out of control. What's your take on where this is going?
I guess for me, we're here now, right? We're here. I think it also shows the other challenges. Like, it's not like a company is going to come in and live in it. So it's like we have to feed ourselves in a way. And I mean, and that's often what our leadership is. We just kind of feed ourselves to sustain the show momentum. But once you see, right, we actually we need to raise the money to actually make the renovations possible. It did say we're growing the number of employees. I think they said something around, looking at the slide deck here, they're talking about how we grew from 900 employees going to be involved to an additional, I want to say it was upwards of 1,200 to 1,600 employees are going to fit into it. So there was some reasons around it. I think other people were disappointed in the parking, adding another parking lot. So, being car centric rather than rail centric. Like, why didn't you make an investment to maybe have a stop there by, city? How cool would it be if we had a rail system that stopped and dropped off right there? I mean, that would be really cool for a lot of people who work there or need to get to the city hall. They're expanding the actual city hall chamber. But yeah, that's kind of where I am at it. I mean, like, it's probably funny because we used a conservative stint on things we don't want to spend money on.
Yeah, that's my thought with it too, is when it comes to Jared Williams proposing something to help out our teenagers, when it comes to proposing things to invest in the city, when it comes to building new middle school gyms and making middle schoolers feel valued. It's this conversation of fiscal responsibility and, I don't know if that makes sense. Is that what we want to spend money on? But then when it comes to a new city hall, it's like, this is double what it was supposed to. Like, okay, let's, borrow some money and be on our way. There's just a lot of cognitive dissonance for me there. And we're investing in things, to me, that have less bang for their buck than actually investing in the community and seeing the outcomes of people feeling like they're heard, valued, known. So Yeah, it's just a lot of cognitive dissonance for me when I see numbers like this coming up.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and keep moving into this kind of pace. You know, we also have Visit Fort Worth had their event last week, and it's kind of their classic brunch where it's like, hey, Fort Worth is doing great. You know, selling the spirit to the already evangelists. Say, hey, we're doing great, Fort Worth. We're doing great. So Fort Worth saw 10.8 million visitors in 2022, with tourism generating more than $3 billion, the highest amount of economic impact from hospitality the city has ever seen. Visit Fort Worth shared these figures Friday during its annual meeting, attended by more than 950 civic business leaders. CEO Bob Jimenez discussed the power of economic engine that tourism, record-breaking visitor rates, and soaring economic impact on Fort Worth. Directly spent $105 million during their stay, 25% increase compared to the previous year, which we know was the pandemic. This is what I thought was really interesting. The economic impacts also include $125 million in local tax revenue, meaning without tourism, the average homeowner would have to pay an additional $700 in property tax each year. Tourism also provides more than 30,000 hospitality jobs in the city. What is your take on these numbers and what you're seeing here? Obviously, they're talking about the Fort Worth Convention Center expanding. Once that expands, that means interest is also going to expand. Hotels are expanding here. So, again, it seems like we're talking and celebrating where we're headed. You stayed downtown this weekend and had a staycation. What is your take?
I mean, so like two-pronged thought here. First is that these numbers are better than we've ever done. So like that's a good thing. We're putting in inputs. We're seeing an output that is better than what it has been in the past. Like, that's great. You know, once I saw those numbers tweeted, just started doing some Googling of like, let's compare ourselves to other cities or places that we could aspire to being. So like Denver, 31 million visitors last year. That's 3 times as many as Fort Worth had. Granted, you have mountains and you know, really cool nature to look at. I don't even want to drop the figure of like Nashville, you know, like when we say that we're looking at like a Nashville, Atlanta, like similarly sized cities to try and compare ourselves to, like, we're not holding a candle to them. Like, we are playing single or double A baseball. We're playing against the Savannah Bananas. And, like, we're not close to the major leagues yet, which is fine. Like, Fort Worth couldn't handle that level of tourism at this point. So it is a cool thing that we are doing better than we have ever done before. But also we need to step out of the echo chamber of look at how great we're doing and actually look at places that we should city size wise compare ourselves to and see, okay, how do we get there? What do we need to do to grow to that level in a responsible way? Yeah. What did you think?
What you're laying down makes a lot of sense. I don't think we're doing Fort Worth terribly wrong. I like the people who do it. I feel like we're working hard. It just keeps going with, I mean, did you not see the unexpected city stuff? Like,
what's your take on the unexpected city? If you missed the video, there's a new tagline for Fort Worth, a new marketing campaign, and it is based on an audio done by Patrick Stewart like 40 or 50 years ago. Honestly, it's really cool that they have like remastered that audio, that it's something that he termed Fort Worth as. It's obviously very niche, but that's the new tagline. I really, the production on the video is great, but let's talk about the brand of the unexpected city.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is they're like, okay, we're doing a good job. We're not calling ourselves Cowtown anymore, but it's anytime when we don't call ourselves Cowtown, it's like, okay, let's show all the Texas culture that we could possibly can. So it was like kind of what you said off mic. It's like, why would you show all the expected stuff on an unexpected city commercial?
Right. That's the, like, there was something just like a little bit off-putting about it to me. And eventually, as I thought about it more and more, I was like, that is it, that you're going to brand us as the unexpected city, but in the marketing promo, you're going to only include the things that if somebody Googled what to do in Fort Worth for a weekend would come up like first and second. Like, bunch of rodeo stuff, bunch of stockyard stuff,
Some museums.
the museums, and that's it. And I don't dislike inherently the unexpected city, but that video doesn't tell the story of an unexpected city. That video tells a story of Cowtown or maybe Modern West.
Yeah. And so that's like exactly what you're saying. It's just, if you ask people what they think of Fort Worth, you said everything that they would expect it to be. Like, there was nothing around net new identities. And that's always my stick with how we market the city, is that we're obsessed with the cowboy culture, and we're obsessed with believing that y'all means all. But you just got to look at the real underlining messages of cowboy culture. And I just think cowboy culture isn't about black progress. It isn't about brown progress. It isn't it. And I'm saying the image of cowboy culture in Fort Worth. Sure, there's a lot of history of Mexican cowboys, black cowboys, but how it's positioned here in Fort Worth, it just is aligned with the Republican agenda of wanting to keep Fort Worth red. And we spend all these dollars to keep it, and now we make these cute little commercials of a little black kid watching a white cowboy run around in an arena, because we're trying to be the Mercedes, where we're trying to market to kids at 8 to 10 to 12 years old, so that Fort Worth stays the same, and that it stays kind of slow, cowboy, conservative. And I think instead of investing all this money to have people see themselves as cowboys, we need to start investing this money on seeing cowboys in other places that are more equitable, right? Cowboys for a Tatiana Jefferson, cowboys for Democrats, right? How cool would that be? Cowboys for LGBTQ education in schools, right? If you want to invest in making cowboy culture more relevant in Fort Worth, amplify and modernize your cowboys. Because I know what they all actually mean. Like, I know what they're probably voting like. I know what they probably believe. And why would I ever want to uplift that?
Yeah, I think I'm interested. Like, I assume that this campaign comes out of the partnership that we have with that marketing agency that we talked about, 5-6 months ago now. I'm interested to know what like the focus group feedback was for this, or versus maybe some other taglines, because to me, a name like the Unexpected City needs some explanation. You don't just say that and someone goes, oh yeah, the Unexpected City. Like, you need a couple paragraphs to explain what you mean by that. And that's where the like video advertising campaign is supposed to come in. But again, like, I watched that and I'm like, that's what I expect of Fort Worth.
That was very Fort Worth.
Yeah. If I'm a prospective tourist, I'm trying to book an Airbnb. All of a sudden they're shut down. I get a note from my owner that says, hey, sorry, like, all Airbnbs are illegal in Fort Worth. Mine got shut down, so I have to cancel your booking. You're like,
it happened unexpectedly.
That was unexpected. I guess they don't want me to travel there. I just think that there is a lot of really cool bar scene. There's great food scene. There's great music scene that could have been displayed in a promo video
Yeah.
alongside the
But how
Cowboys.
dope would have unexpected video been? And there was no Cowboys, because that would have been very unexpected. Fort Worth would be like, all of us would be like, wow, this is very unexpected.
Hey,
you just promoted Fort Worth without mentioning a cowboy or a rancher or the stockyards?
Here's Kendrick Lamar shooting his music video here.
Yeah.
You know, like
The National Juneteenth Museum coming, you know, like all this stuff that's happening that, you know, doesn't need. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, this is a classic thing that, unfortunately, to me, I think so many people are obsessed with it that we will never get out of it.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, you go to
we've drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you go to a meeting like this, and you cannot go to something like this and talk to someone without eventually hearing the phrase like, "Cowboys are cool. Everyone wants to be a cowboy." And I just like promise you that that's not true. As someone who like didn't grow up here and did not care about cowboys, and even like I'll dip into like theme park history, like expanding globally. Disney, Universal, immersive parks like that have gone international, like they do away with their American West themed lands in a number of international markets because that's not something that resonates with people. Like they don't care about cowboys.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to appeal to the international visitor, even if we're trying to appeal to like the California visitor, I just don't think that outside of Fort Worth, people think cowboys are that cool. And so again, like I liked the production of the video. I could see the story that they were trying to tell with it. But it just maybe didn't like fit with the unexpected city for me. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into our big story. Our big story, Fort Worth Report last week did a Fort Worth Way panel, and over 200 people showed up for the Fort Worth Way panel. It was at 7:30 a.m., and so that means there was a thirst to talk about the Fort Worth Way. And the Fort Worth Way, I don't know what it is to you, Jimmy, but the Fort Worth Way is basically the old powers at play who's been here since it was a small town and has influence and has their culture. And now that we're a booming city and growing, they are still in power and still operating in closed doors as if we're a small town. So the Fort Worth Way panel had Mayor Betsy Price, a friend of the pod, Dante Williams at Community Frontline, and Director of Leadership Fort Worth, who was also a friend of the pod, Jennifer Trevino. But today's guest, we get another one from the panel, and the reason why we were so excited to have him is he was, to me, in my opinion, the spotlight of the panel, because maybe I knew the other three's narrative. He was new to me, he was fresh, he shared a lot of opinions, and so we found a way to get a hold of him. And so Alex Jimenez is our guest today to talk about the Fort Worth Way. He's lived in East Fort Worth for 40 years. He was the vice president at TXU Corporation and has spent tons of time on different boards, different political campaigns. He's the only person to have served as chairman of both the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce. He's also on the board for Rocket Ship Public Schools. And he also was the chairman of Fort Worth Housing Authority Board, which he will also discuss. And in this pod, he also endorses someone for District 11. So if you're a District 11 person, which in my opinion is one of the most exciting positions going on this year because it's the most full of candidates. So you get to hear that as well. So here's Mr. Jimenez.
My Fort Worth story is that since I was a kid, I grew up in a little town called Eastland, Texas. It's between here and Abilene, Texas. And we would come visit folks in Dallas that my mother knew. And I would always be impressed driving in from the west, and I'd see the outline of the city. And I always wanted to live here. When I graduated from high school, I was 17 years old and went to work. I graduated on Friday night, and Monday morning I was digging holes for the electric utility company. Mm-hmm. And that was my job. And then I started going to college, And the headquarters at the time, it was called Texas Electric, was in Fort Worth. So my goal was to do whatever it took to get to Fort Worth, and finally did, taking a lot of educational leaves of absence to go to college. I worked in Eastland, Snyder, Texas, finally got here, and I met a gentleman called Kent Hance, who was going to run for U.S. Senate. And I told him out in West Texas, I'm going to be moving to Fort Worth, and I want to help you. And 2 weeks after I got here, I contacted his manager, and he happened to be flying in to meet him that morning. And I went out and met him, and I got real active working. I told the gentleman, you be the brains, I'll be the arms and legs. You tell me what needs to be done. And I did everything from setting up phone banks, putting yard signs, getting volunteers, licking stamp, envelopes, the whole bit. And I got him in a runoff, but he didn't make it. But since then, I've worked or volunteered on over probably 70 campaigns, political campaigns. But I'm not, I call myself independent. I will work on Republican campaigns and Democrat campaigns. It's what that person's heart is that I look at. Is where are they coming from? And if they align with me, I will certainly work for them. For example, if you remember when Kay Bailey Hutchinson ran for governor, I'd met her several times. I'd go to events in D.C., things like that, when I was working for TXU Corporation, and told her, if you ever run for governor, I'll help you. Well, one day she called me and said, hey, I'm going to run for governor. Will you help me? I said, yes, ma'am. And my role with her was going around, especially to South Texas, and introducing her to folks in the Latino community down there. And then 4 years later, I guess, Wendy Davis ran for governor, and she called me and asked for my help. And I introduced her when she announced for governor and tried to help her. I didn't say I always won. Those two ladies lost. But I do. It doesn't matter to me. If I feel there's a good person there, I'll do what I can to help them. So when I got here, finally, I was 24 years old, happy, having a great time, enjoying everybody, working on campaigns, loving the company. And I just started getting more and more involved. And I would recommend that to young people. If you really want to get to know the city and get to know people, volunteer on political campaigns, all kinds, city council, school board, etc. And I found a house in East Fort Worth, and like I said, I've been here about 40 years. And over time, like Dante said on that panel, that he hasn't seen much things change. But what I have seen is that there's been a degradation in East Fort Worth. You know, it is a little more vibrant 40 years ago, but people started moving out, and as people moved out, they moved to the west side. The west side has become more vibrant in the last 40 years. Of course, Alliance Airport up north has come alive, and you know there's out in that area. It's probably as big as what Fort Worth was when I first moved here, and population wise, and over during that time period, I worked here, loved it, served on several boards and commissions, and then I was elected vice president of the company, but the job was in Dallas. So I commuted to Dallas for 12 years, and then had the opportunity at 51 to basically walk away, and they offered a voluntary severance. And I felt that my heart and watching my mother and sisters and what they were older than me, and especially my mother, watching what she did, even in Eastland, of helping others, I felt like that was something I probably needed to do more of, and took that severance and have been out here in East Fort Worth, just trying to bring attention that we really need to bring economic development to the east side. We need help with the education, especially the elementary schools, the middle schools, to give these kids a chance in life. Because if you can't read, you're screwed for the rest of your life. If you can't read at grade level, you're not going to do as well as you can be. And so that's kind of what I've been doing the last few years, is just trying to bring attention. And when you do that, sometimes you step on toes and people put you in the box. But I learned a long time ago that no one can put you in the box unless you let them. So yeah. I guess that's my Fort Worth story.
That's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. So this week you were on the Fort Worth Reports panel about the Fort Worth Way. Can you tell us about that panel, how you got involved in it? What was your expectation going into it? And what do you feel like came out of it?
I volunteer a lot in different areas. I know a lot of people. I've been blessed. I always tell people that I think God is just pushing me along the way to it. He knows what I'm supposed to be doing. I just haven't figured it out yet, but I will. And I've met a lot of different people. You know, I've worked with all the mayors on their campaigns since I've been here. I've worked on a lot of different. I have good friends that I met when I first came here working on those elections, and they are all out there doing good work. And I help them, and I get introduced to other people by them. I met the publisher CEO of the Fort Worth Report not long after he moved here. And in fact, I was on a focus group when they were, the folks that brought them in were talking about it, and they wanted to know what we thought about the current publications and how the news was getting out. And then when I met Chris, he and I talked, we visited, and we've shared thoughts. And he just called one day, asked if I would do it. And I said, "Are you sure you want me to do it?" Because I'm not very filtered. I'll kind of say what I need to say. But that's the way growing up in a small town. And if you were 6, 7, 8 years old, my father died when I was 6. And I was basically the spokesperson for my family. And so since I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and now they still call me when they need something and there's a problem. They want me to help them fix it. But when you're that young and you're going to, and even though Eastland was a little town, 3,500 people, you go downtown by yourself because everybody else was working. Mm. And you kind of hold up the family's issue there. And I guess I had it in my heart that I couldn't leave there without getting what I came for, because my family depended on me. So that I still have that in me, and but now I still help my family, but I feel that my role, what God has put me here for, is to help those who do not have a voice. Because I've seen, as when I was a chairman of the Fort Worth Housing Authority, I saw that. I saw, we had 1,200 units in public housing. We had 5,000 housing vouchers, and they were all vetted. And, they were all good people. They just happened to be poor. Mm. But I heard a lot of well-to-do people in Fort Worth always refer to them as those people. And those people should get a job. Those people should not be lazy. And I would just listen to them. And when they got done, I said, well, what would you say if I told you that most of these folks did work? Now they're senior citizens, but they didn't work for a company like mine where I'm going to have retirement, pension, some perks. They work cleaning your house, mowing your yard, washing dishes at restaurants. And they'd say, well, we didn't know that. And again, the mouth in me would say, Do you always talk about stuff you don't know about? Because I don't. And, and that's why we came up with changing the face of public housing. You know, Dante talked about tearing down Cavill. That was something we talked about back in the late 90s when Kay Granger was the mayor, and she asked me to serve on that board because she thought that nothing was getting done and there was a better way to help these residents. So my focus in everything I did on that board and what I preached to the staff, what the other commissioners, it's about the residents. It's got to be good for the residents. If it's not good for the residents, we don't do it. And then it's also got to be good for the city, and it's got to be good for the housing authority. And I think if you kind of set those kind of goals, you usually go down the right path. So that's kind of how I got on the panel, I think. I still have that passion to help people, and I think Chris realizes that. And again, I'm not here to make anybody unhappy or make them mad. I just want them to listen and to focus before we get into problems that like other cities do. I think we have the opportunity if we all would listen to each other. And if you were there, you heard me say that it's a two-way street. And to me, the two-way street means that we both got to, all these communities, you know, Black, Brown, Anglo, have got to come together. But we ought to come to the table with our mindset is, what can I do to change what I'm doing to help the situation? And because if you come in there and say you are the problem, you need to change, then the conversation is basically over. And I don't think we can get anywhere until we just sit and visit and talk openly and respectfully. Respect everybody's opinion.
What is your so break down your how do you define the Fort Worth way, and what is your biggest concern about the powers at play in the city of Fort Worth?
Well, I think it's just that life is fast. We're growing so fast. And back in the day, Bob Boland, if you guys did not know him, when I first moved here, was the mayor. Bob Boland could walk into any community in this city at midnight, 1 a.m, and people in those communities would take care of him because he was that kind of guy. Now, he was a bicycle salesman, so he was a good listener, and he would listen to people, and he respected people. And the end of the day, we were in those rooms. You know, I was a young man back then. I was on boards commissions, and I would sit with the mayor, the police chief. You know, back in the day, we had some kind of ethics commission, and I remember Estel Vance, who was the partner at Canny Hanger, and I had helped him get elected to city council, and I was on that committee, and we were talking about it, and the police chief, Wyndham, was on the committee, and I said, well, we need to hold the chief accountable. And I remember Estel Vance looking at me and go, oh, man, you got guts. I said, no, I mean, we all got to be accountable. And that's what I tried to say the other day. We've got to hold all of us accountable for this. So back in the day, Viola Pitts and people like that were in those rooms when those kind of decisions were being made. And then I think because and I believe that the folks, you know, the Matty Parkers, the Chief Noakes, the Betsy Prices are good people. But I think they move so fast, and we're all conditioned that the first people you go to is the people that you're very familiar with. And if you hear me talk, I ask people to come out to East Fort Worth, to Las Vegas Trail, to Diamond Hill. Come visit, spend time, so you will know the folks there because they're good people. And then hopefully you can add them to your Rolodex list, if you will. You could you'll add more people. And it seemed like there was more inclusion back then, more collaboration. And then, when I got promoted vice president, I go to Dallas for 12 years. I'd leave here at 6:30 in the morning, leave Dallas 7 o'clock at night. So I kind of lost touch of some folks here. And when I got here back, when I left the company, it seemed like there was a different set of leaders, people that I didn't know, but I got to know them because I got right involved at the end of the day. But then I saw that it was the same folks over and over again. I always tell people, if you guys have ever gone to the State of the City address that the downtown chamber puts on, the end of the day, I've been to those, but it usually, there's 1,000, 1,200 people that show up, but it's the same 900,000 people, 900 or 1,000 people. So when you leave there, you think everything's okay, everything's fine. We're a great city, man. We just got to go home and just do nothing. Well, there's 990,000 more people out here that may not think like that. And all I'm asking, anybody I talk to, come to the East Side, go to Diamond Hill, go to Las Vegas Trail, see how people are living payday to payday. And one incident, be a sick person in the house, a broken down car, and it throws them for a loop. And desperation causes a lot of things that shouldn't be happening. But I think by bringing economic development to all parts of inside Loop 820, improving the education system inside Loop 820, and when I say that, just focusing on kids reading, focus on them learning how to read. And when they can read anything, be anything they want to be, and they'll be successful. But we just seem to focus too much on other things in education. But if we focus on those economic development, education inside Loop 820, I think you'll see a lot better city than anywhere else in the world if we could do that.
What's your take on how do you think we're doing with economic development in the 820 loop compared to the rest of the Metroplex? How do you feel like Fort Worth proper is growing compared to everywhere else around us?
Oh, I mean, I've been very vocal in meetings, and I used to be asked to be on some committees. I'm not so much anymore, but that's okay. We spend a lot of time on the things that need the least amount of help, and don't spend any time on the things that we could really improve. We could get more bang for our buck. And give you an example. Alliance Airport. They came into being Lakers, and I was the area manager for TXU back then when they were buying it. And when Ross Jr. was buying all that property. In fact, when I was chairing, when I got installed as chairman of the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber, he was my keynote speaker. Jim Wright was there, was a speaker as well when that happened. But they don't need the city's help. They're going to do very well without the city. But it seems like, give you an example. There's two outlet malls, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 miles apart out there. And one got, what do they call those? Incentive from the city. One got a $25 million incentive. The other one got a $30 million incentive up in the Alliance Airport corridor. Hey, do we need 2 outlet malls? And then B, if you just took a little of that and focused it on East Fort Worth, Las Vegas Trail, Diamond Hill, we could get more bang for the buck. We could get some things done. We're not going to get a Facebook. We're not going to get a Toyota factory in East Fort Worth, but we could get something in Fort Worth that would be like the Domino, just like West 7th. If you guys have ever been to West 7th Street, one of our commissioners on the housing authorities is Jim Harris. He's a very well-to-do, hard worker, and he'll also tell you what he's thinking if you ask him. But he was on a commission, and he was buying after the tornado that hit Montgomery wards in that area. He started buying up property because people started saying, "Oh no, this is terrible." He bought that property and he started fixing some of these things up, and then the domino fell. He was the domino, and then all that area around Folk Street, Carroll, West Seventh, it just took off. I say it just took off. It took them 5 or 7 years to start building that mass, but people started flocking there. And I'm just saying, we just get a couple of victories over here inside Loop 820. You'll start getting other folks to come. Now, there are people that must be listening, because there are folks that are buying properties in East Fort Worth. And I think there'll be a day when we will get a lot done. Now, and I think the city is listening as well, because I don't know if y'all heard about they're talking about a mass transit system from downtown to Loop 820 on Lancaster Street.
Yeah.
And we need to help with that, because that could spur the way I honestly probably won't ever get on the bus, because I like my car, and I never even valet when I go somewhere, because when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. But if we could do that, and along that area, do some economic development things with the help of whoever, I think you start seeing that come back. And if we focus on those kind of things, I think it helps everybody. It will make this city so much better than where we are today. And we're not a bad city, but we can be better.
Yeah. Well, I believe you're now a part of the new District 11. Is that?
Yeah. No, I'm in 5.
5. Okay.
In District 5.
Well, what is your take on the upcoming election and the importance of it now that we have the 2 additional districts?
Well, I went to council meetings when they voted the map, and when they voted it, my comment I spoke to them and said that I wanted to thank them for doing that, because I got here and I've been working on the 80 census, the 90 census, the 90, the 2000, the 2010, 2020 census. And there's a lot of Latinos that have passed, good men, Gilbert Garcia, Sam Garcia, folks like that tried to get another Latino opportunity district. And here we are, we finally have one. So in District 11, that's the one that's kind of been gerrymandered a little bit. It does look real funny, and it does bring different groups together, different neighborhoods. But that 59% of the voting population there is Latino. So I will support a Latina. And I've gotten an email from the folks over here. And that email basically asked me, they said, I heard that I was looking for a Latino candidate to run in District 11. You're not in District 11, so you need to stay out of it. I haven't written it back because I don't do. But you know, I've been told a lot of stuff in my life, and you don't fight back right away. The only way you win those is just go find a candidate to run and get them elected. And that's what I plan to do. So I'll be supporting Jeanette Paz for that seat in 11. She kind of out of the Hemp Hill area, but she's got a good heart. She's good people, and I think she'll put Fort Worth first. And I think that's what, you know, I'll work my best to try to get her elected. So I'm hopeful that we can get a Latina voted into that district. I know there's a lot of the Anglo community in that district, especially east of 35, that are looking. In fact, that note I got said that they had put a coalition together on who to find a candidate for District 11. And I would bet money that coalition was probably all Anglo. Same way about what we're talking about is not having a diverse group to make those kind of decisions. But anyway, I'm glad we have it. I think that it's important that we have representation on the council and also diversity. I mean, different opinions. You know, if you had 7 Hispanic men on the city council, if you had 7 of them, that's probably 5 or 4 too many. Because basically they're probably going to have a lot of similar thought process. But you need Latina, you need African Americans, you need Anglos, probably Asians of both genders. You just need variety. People who have different life experiences that are willing to work together, and I think it's a stronger team.
Well, we're both District 11, so I love hearing your insight into that, even as a District 5er. Yeah. My last question, you have been the chairman of both the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So you've been in the thick of things on both sides of the Metroplex. To you, what is your perception of the difference between the decision makers behind closed doors in Fort Worth and the Dallas decision makers?
Oh, great question. Thank you for asking that question. I served over here and got to meet a lot of great people. Like Majority Leader Jim Wright was a speaker when I got installed. Then Ross Jr. Okay, then I get promoted to vice president and commute to Dallas. The Hispanic Chamber asked me to serve on their board. I said, certainly, I'll do that. And, I was on 12 or so boards and commissions in Dallas while I worked over there. And we met the third Wednesday of the month, and it was June was my first board meeting. One of the board members asked me to meet him for breakfast on July the 5th. I met him for breakfast, and he asked if I would run for chair of the Dallas Hispanic Chamber. And I said, I've been on the board 2 weeks. It's not fair. I mean, there's 21 members. I mean, it's not fair for me to do that. We needed someone that's been there and been paying their due. Yeah, Alex, but you need to do it because you've done the Fort Worth and you'd be a good one. Oh, hell, I'd be the best one you ever had, but it's still not fair. Guys, you got other people there that have been on the board, 4 or 5 years, and they've served on committees. Let one of them do it. I mean, I'll support them. And he said, look, there's a guy on the board that's already threatened us to stay out of it. He wants to do it. He's a dirty fighter. I said, well, you know what? You get what you sometimes you get what you deserve. You need to stand up. Somebody needs to stand up. Well, after 4 or 5 more board members came to me, I said, I'll do whatever the board wants me to do. And the board nominated me to be the chair. And that man came up to me after that board meeting, and he said, does your CEO know you're running for this? Because we're going to call him and tell him we don't appreciate TXU doing this, and we shouldn't have a corporate person on this board. And I said, you know what? And I pulled out my pad and wrote down the CEO's name and his direct line. And I said, well, here's his direct line. You call him and ask him what he thinks. I don't have to ask permission from anybody to do what I do. So, but let me know what he thinks. And I tell people that the difference between being the chair at the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber and Dallas is the Dallas Hispanic Chamber is as close to a contact sport as you can get to in civic service. Um, it was tough, and there was people that came after me, but I said I'm going to serve, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to help this chamber, but you vote however you want to, I got elected, and some of those people who really fought hard, and these are guys and ladies out there that are still fighting. They're still doing the same thing of advocating. They're probably not as angry as they were back then, but they're still doing it, and I respect them. And you know what? They're some of my closest friends now because they saw what I did and what I came with. They saw that I helped this chamber and did everything I said I was going to do. And there's one of these ladies that is a pretty tough lady that I tell you, if I ever got in a bind, she'd be right behind me, helping me, supporting me. So the difference is when I got there, the Hispanic Chamber got to sit with the CEOs of industry in Dallas. They had put together a group that met for breakfast once a month to talk about relations in the communities, what needed to be looked at. And from there, I learned that Ron Kirk, when he got elected mayor, that this group got together and said, we need to have a person of color. It's time that Dallas does that for mayor. And they came up with Ron Kirk, who's an attorney, as y'all probably know. And they, one of the law firms that was in that meeting, gave him a job. And then all those CEOs went to work to talk to Anglo community about him and support him. And some of them came back and said that so-and-so was really not really nice about it. There's no way we're going to vote, what in. But it was, but they did. And he worked for that law firm, but he pretty well worked at being mayor. I've brought that idea up here in Fort Worth in business meetings, but it doesn't go anywhere. But part of the reason is the CEOs. There's a lot more of them in Dallas. They are here, and I don't know if there is a group like that here in Fort Worth. I've never been at a meeting of one of those type of groups when there was 15 or 20 CEOs around the table talking openly about how we could make Dallas better. There may be, but I've not seen it. And now, if they're listening to this, I hope they would consider looking at some of their employees and encourage them to get involved as public servants, to run for city council, for school board. Because if you work for a corporation, like I did since I was 17, my first job was digging holes. This is where they set the poles up. But you learn a lot. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of strategy. And I think, but they need to hire people of color and women to give them those opportunities as well. So I see that as a difference. I saw it almost as soon as it got to Dallas.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us on the pod and bringing some insights and thoughts around the Fort Worth way. I guess my kind of last question, if you can give us kind of what you're excited about for the next 40 years. You said you've been here for 40. What are you excited for the next 40 years? One of my favorite things you said during the panel, how you even think Tarrant County will be bigger than Dallas County down the road. So just kind of give us more of your forecasts and predictions of what we all should be excited about.
Well, I think land-wise, we're already bigger because we've got so much land up north. We annexed it. Bob Boland did that when he was the mayor, and I saw it happening because I was area manager for TXU. Dallas city limit proper doesn't have any more growth in it. We do population-wise. We're catching up with them, and eventually we'll surpass them at the end of the day. So I'm excited about that. But I'd like some of those jobs to be inside Central City as we discussed. But I hope that that conversation. I had two negative comments. Two prominent gentlemen in this town came up to me, and one of them said I complained a lot, and I should run for office. And I didn't say this, but I was thinking, well, how does that get anything done? Because we've had a lot of city council people and still have the problem. So I don't know that's the answer. But at the end of the day, I think just the Fort Worth Report doing what they did, and even Betsy Price having the courage and just the grace that she has to come and speak, because I think she probably took a couple of shots at there. But having that discussion and having that room full of people, to me, says that it's something that's needed, that I think it's something that people are craving. So we got to figure out how do we do more of that, and really have time to listen and to each other and respect each other. And my comment on the people that work for the city, getting out of their comfort zone, going to the east side and the north side and south and west side. I mean, if they worked for me, I would say, I want you to go out there and meet with people. I want you to be out there in those locations 4 hours at each location a week, which is 16 hours, and learn what's going on, because I think it'll make them stronger in their business. So I see that as a big positive. We can get people to come to these, look around the Inside Loop 820 and have these dialogues. What you're doing with this 817 podcast, I think we just have to do more and more of it. But I would say we need to do it respectfully, because if we lead in, if you notice, I said I did not use racist. I did not use that word. That I used that bias and prejudice, because we all are biased and prejudiced. But if you use that word, it shuts off conversation. The folks that were calling that, turn it off. That they put that wall up. But we go in there and say, what do we do together to make this place a better city for everybody, for these kids that are coming up? How do we make sure that when they're our age, they can say, this is a great city. I had so many opportunities here. So I think talking and listening to each other, hopeful that maybe we can put groups like Dallas did together of business titans that can really look at the holistic approach to this city about how do we hire more minority and women-owned business, minority and women, and get them ready to serve the city in some capacity. How do we do that? If we can do those kind of things, yeah, we can avoid some of the problems Dallas had. At one time, Dallas was a small city, and it grew and grew and grew. And then that's when they had, I remember them having fist fights at city council. But they grew, I don't want us to ever do that, but I think if we get ahead of the curve and listen to each other, include people of color, include women, include everybody, I think what I tell people, when I had meetings, I always wanted someone in the meeting that didn't agree with it, so I could see where is there a blind spot here? Is there something I'm not seeing? And I think it just helps make you a stronger team if you can do that. So I think we'll hopefully this panel and the things that you guys are doing will get the word out, and maybe once we get the city and the school board to start working together about how do we bring all these communities together. And I think that's the key. If we don't, we'll probably have some of the same growing issues that Dallas had.
I loved getting to listen to him. I feel like he is a type of person that in our current state of extreme partisan politics just like doesn't really exist anymore. So I love hearing about all his experience, and I'll echo like him giving the shout out to Betsy Price. Like, she took some shots that I'll say are probably deserved. But you know, she had a lot of grace showing up to that panel, even participating, because there's really not anything for her to gain out of it, I would say. And I think overall, like, I am glad that the Fort Worth Report had the idea and is executing on holding these types of panels, because, like he said, they are conversations that need to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he said he endorsed Jeanette Martinez, an executive administrator for County Commissioner Roy Brooks, who is running in District 11. We're going to have a longer conversation around all the election stuff next week. But yeah, I thought he was good. The point that I thought was really humorous, and it went back to the Visit Fort Worth stuff, was, yeah, you can't keep having events where you have like 1,200 people there and the same 1,000 or the same people, and then you just keep doing that over and over again. You know, I thought that was a pretty good take from him as well, and how he talked about the difference between Dallas and Fort Worth. With Dallas, it was more hand-to-hand combat. Dallas, you can get into the room. Fort Worth, he was like, actually, I don't really know how you would do that. I don't even know where these people connect. And this is someone who's been a part of things for 40 years. So I thought this was great insight for us, and really excited to stay in touch.
Yeah. You ready to move into wins and losses?
Let's make it happen.
I'll start with my loss. So we were hanging out last night. You know, we were staying at the Kimpton Harper, and like downtown was feeling vibrant. You know, like there's just a lot of cars out. It's full. Like the hotel is full. It feels like there's a lot going on. But then like the moment you step outside, and we walked from the hotel over to the South Main. The moment you step outside, like there's nobody walking around, you know, like it feels dead. And I realized that the convention center is a very big roadblock to connecting downtown with South Main. And like you're walking along there, and it kind of feels like, oh, should I be walking here? Like, is this sidewalk? Is this loading area for the convention center? Like, am I in the right place? And then why did we redo the Hemp Hill tunnel and not the South Main one? The Hemp Hill one kind of leads to nowhere. The South Main one is where all the action is, where we've put in all this investment. And still, like, we walk there and back. We're walking around South Main, and like we're the only ones walking. And it just really hit home for me that like we are so deep into our car culture that even on what was a busy Saturday night in Fort Worth, you step outside a building and it just feels dead. And I feel like that is a culture piece that Fort Worth needs to figure out for long-term growth and feeling like a big city.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it's crazy what South Main feels like. It when you add in, what's the Italian restaurant? Trey Mowgli. When you add in Trey Mowgli is the size of Spaghetti Warehouse. That thing is huge. And then you add, now there's a Soma winery. The amount of fur vests and cowboy hats I see in South Main now I mean, like, I thought it was going to become a more grungy, like it was going to be more like maybe like this night could be bad, but like the Deep Ellum version of Fort Worth, where it's a little bit more grimy concerts. But now I'm like, shoot, I got to go back to West Magnolia to just, you know, hit the Boiled Owl or chat room. Like, this is so stiff and stuffy.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's kind of a mind-blowing kind of
it happened
character.
fast.
Yeah,
like I feel like it took a decade for West Mag to get to that point.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because there was even more city investment into South Main, but it happened so fast.
Yeah, like, I mean, you got valet for Trey Mowgli. Like, now it's like, whoa, what happened to, you know, why are we valeting in Fort Worth? Like, what happened to this energy? And it's just, I mean, and then you see, I mean, again, I've ate there. I'm not knocking the food, whatever. Like, I've been there, but it's just like now you walk out to a different arena because now these people who can afford this like fancy Italian place goes to Morgan's Ice Cream, goes to Nickel City, goes to these places, and it's just, it changes the environment of what Hop Fusion felt like before everything showed up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I can see that loss as a whole, but hey, Fort Worth has become what Fort Worth needs to be. My loss, I don't know if I have like a crazy loss. I've seen a couple. I mean, I guess I would go with my loss is more like the conversations around the police force. I saw this story in the Dallas Morning News about the department looking to ease hiring crisis. Now they're talking about the Dallas Police Department, but I would imagine I'd be loving to know what's the Fort Worth Police Department's numbers. But it's just talking about how Dallas police losses versus recruiting. I mean, in 2013, they had 3,500 police. In 2021, they have 3,000 police. So the amount of energy we do to hire police, we are losing police 2 years in a row in Dallas. But I thought what was also interesting about the story, it said, I mean, it was in Wednesday's paper, February 15th. It said that currently about 27% of the sworn officers in the department is eligible to retire. So I also then started thinking about that funny story where there's like, they talked about this 99-year-old Fort Worth officer. Did you see that in the paper from Parker County? It was like the longest standing police officer, 99 years old, and it was this guy. I'm like, man, they're trying to keep all these people from retiring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess my loss is just like, you know, we spend a lot of money on police. It's our number one cost with our tax dollars. And we're not talking about how we can't even actually fund and sustain because and to me, unable to hire when money is not a problem is a showcase of how it's an outdated way of doing things, you know? So, but yeah, that's my loss. What's your win?
My win, I guess it's almost kind of like a win-loss. But my win is that for us as residents of District 11, like you mentioned, District 11 is definitely going to be the most hoppin' of the city council races.
The most exciting race.
The most exciting. So I'll give it my win as like new district and people are jumping in head first and they're excited. That kind of goes hand in hand with a loss of like the other ones aren't as exciting, and I have a feeling that voter turnout is going to be very low. I mean, we've got 3 incumbents in uncontested races. So kind of a win-loss combo there, but my win being that District 11 is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited that we get to be like in the middle of seeing these candidates really take hold of a new district and how they can impact the city.
I think 817 podcast should attempt to try to set up in our busy schedules, but hey, why not? Let's try to set up a District 11 panel debate for one of our episodes. You know, let's get Christopher Johnson, Jeanette Martinez, Ricardo Avitia, Rick Herring, Tara Maldonado Wilson. Let's get them all together in a Zoom and just like talk about District 11. That'd be cool.
Let's start some fist fights the way that Alex is talking about the Dallas Chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, my win, honestly, my win is in Mansfield, but I thought it was a cool story. Mansfield took a first step to a film studio development expected to bring more than 2,000 jobs. The city's staff has been working with an entity named Super Studios Mansfield LLC for several months. It's a mixed-use development along the city's western border, according to the city documents. Mansfield City Council approved a resolution Monday evening last week that will allow the city manager to authorize a development agreement. These are the kind of jobs that we're talking about. The studio will help fill the need for content for streaming services such as Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix. So it's a really cool kind of, I think, another scene of film. And I think it's just cool that it's happening here in Tarrant County. Mansfield is growing. And yeah, that's a Tarrant County place. So I'll give them a win.
Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Honestly, I mean, it's been a lot of fun having all of these interviews and getting to involve a lot of people in these conversations over the last few weeks. We, as always, appreciate y'all's support, appreciate y'all listening, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.